you virtually today?
Mm-hmm.
What?
Natalie's gonna be running it too. Ooh, Natalie's in the waiting room. Should I let her in?
First one, let her in. Let her in, brother.
I don't know. I'm kind of nervous.
Everyone's in trouble. He said, I'm kind of nervous.
All right, everybody stay quiet. Natalie's on. I haven't visited her yet.
So we're still wrapping up with that last one. Kelly, we had more questions than anticipated. Just hold on, Natalie. We're still wrapping up. You have to reschedule for maybe.
Good morning, everyone. Can you guys in the training room hear me? I'm going to go with no.
Morning, Natalie.
Good morning.
How you doing? All right, I think that's pretty much everybody.
Are we waiting on a couple of people yet? Or are we ready to roll? Is the training room connected okay?
Yeah, I think we should be done.
All right, cool. So you guys have sound in the training room, right? It looks like everybody needs to do some jumping jacks over there. All right. Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Did you guys bring your coffee to this meeting? I got the invite and it said that it's a coffee meeting. So I made sure to bring my coffee. Does everyone have their coffee? You know, it's funny. I was telling one of my friends this morning, just because we were talking and I realized it. I'm like, I'm going to do a meeting with my favorite team in Chicago, and it's a coffee meeting, and I'm drinking out of the coffee cup from my favorite breakfast place that's like not that far from the office. Your office. So if the Honey Jam Cafe, you guys got to check it out if you haven't been there. Has anyone been there yet? No? All right. Well, guys, this morning I wanted to take a little bit of time so that we could spend some time talking a little bit about our referral collection and our referral conversion. So I'm going to go over a couple of quick points, but I want you guys to kind of think, like, I want to prepare you now so you can kind of put a few thoughts together, maybe write down a couple questions, but there's some things that I want to know from you guys to be able to make this the most effective. So one thing that I'd like to get into in a minute, I'll be asking you guys for volunteers here on anybody that, if you want to share what you're running into as far as objections that you're getting with referrals or roadblocks that you're running into with referrals, because that's one of the things that we want to make sure to cover today. And I want to make sure that we can specifically hit on things that you guys are dealing with in the field. Okay. So I do see some new faces on here. So for those of you that I have not had the opportunity to meet in person, my name is Natalie, and I actually am a director through Home Office. And the Vena agency is actually one of the agencies that I work hand in hand with. And they also happen to be one of my favorite agencies, because I think that you guys have the most talent of any team that I've met as far as a cohesive team. But also because Chicago is technically my home. It's where I grew up and was born and raised. So I'm a huge Chicago sports fan, and Chicago, even though I now live in Florida, Chicago is still, it's everything Chicago in this house. I love it. It's my favorite city on the planet. So one of the things about my career with the company, guys, actually tomorrow, I'm going to be celebrating my 16-year anniversary with American Income. So back when I was 12 and I started with the company, I had the opportunity, which is a little different from most people's careers, is that I was able to work, because I was relocating for other reasons, in 3 different agencies in 3 different territories across the company. And one thing that I learned throughout my career and my time here is really that all of our markets are, for the most part, consistent. There's a few different things that differ depending on what part of the country that you're in. But for the most part, it's the same business setup everywhere we go. And the idea behind the American Income business setup, for those of us that we're bringing into the company, and for those of us that have chosen this as a career, is really for us to take the resources that are provided through the agency, but take those resources with the goal and the intent to not just protect those families, but to take those resources and multiply those resources. I was always taught when I got into this business, and, we talked about being self-employed, and really, what I loved about it was not being capped on my income. If I wanted to make more appointments, or if I wanted to make more money, all I had to do was set more appointments and see more people. But I also realized very quickly that if I didn't have enough people to set more appointments with, then that theory didn't exactly come into fruition, right? So it's got to be, guys, that before we try to really make an impact in this area, we've got to get our mind right first on the approach for the resources that are given to us. You know, we really don't want, like, I never took a lead and was like, oh, it's time for me to go sell insurance. Like, I looked at my lead pack as, okay, I have 30 leads, because when I started back in, 1919, we literally, guys, got 30 leads to last us the entire month. And to be honest with you, we set appointments. We set a lot more appointments than we do now. I mean, we had 40 appointments every single week. So if you do the math on that, how do you get 40 appointments every single week when you only have 30 leads to work with starting at the beginning of the month, right? Well, you've got to switch your mindset to not that these are people for you to go sell insurance to, but these are people for you to go and expand your resources. Your goal needs to be that you have so many resources that you get to the point where you have to pre-qualify people before you even get to the house. But we can't do that if we don't have an unlimited amount of resources at our disposal, right? For those of you that are new, that maybe haven't gotten into running referrals yet, or this might sound like a weird thing to you, what I want you guys to understand is that putting in any type of effort in this area is so worth it, because when you start running referrals, it starts to feel like you're working with your families, like you're working with an extension of your own family. Does that make sense? When I have, like right in front of me on the screen, who I can see Matt and Alejandro and Gabby right in front of me, right? If I go see Matt and he sends me to Alejandro, that's just like I'm meeting one of Matt's friends, because I already have that rapport with Matt and he recommended me. By the time I get to go see Gabby and both of them have referred her, there's so many things that I have to talk about with Gabby just based on the rapport that I have built with the previous two people. So I want to see you guys learn to have some fun in this business. And fun is when you call to set appointments and the people say to you on the phone, I don't have a lot of time to talk right now, but I already talked to my friend Matt and I want to do what he has. So when can we get it set up? That's fun, right? Fun is when you get in front of somebody and you build up the exclusiveness behind the referral program to the point where they call you after you leave with people that they already sold it to, that you just have to go pick up the checks. That is fun. And really, guys, with your talent level, I mentioned at the beginning of this that one of the reasons that I just adore you guys is because you're so talented as a group. And that's true. But I want you to understand that if you want to be the best of the best, if you want to lead the company, if you want to be the top producer, and you guys have some great weeks, like I saw the leaderboard, the last couple of weeks, you've had people writing 5,000, 6,000, 8,000 a week, a few people that are over 4,000 and 5,000 on a consistent basis. And that's awesome. That's a good week. But guys, we have people in our company that write $50,000, $60,000 in a week in production. One person, not a team of people, just one individual. And it's not that far off if you set yourself up right, but it'll never happen if we're only utilizing the resources that we're given. I promise you. One of the things that I get to do as part of my job is I get to interview top producers, and I always ask them how much of their business is referral business. That's one of the questions that I almost always ask. 90% of them, guys, are 80% or more of their business is referral production. There's nobody that has referral production under 70% of their business that's in the top 10 in the company. The good news is that I am more than happy to share anything that you guys need help with. And I always came out of an agency where my team, specifically 80% of their production was from referrals. So it's not just about, as an individual, it's about if we want to excel as a team, we've all got to come together and help each other and coach each other and really get good and embrace this skill, because it will change the dynamic of where you're at on the leaderboard. it can change your entire career. It goes from your income being dependent upon what resources you have to literally opportunity unlimited, which is what this is all about, right? So let's get into some of this, and I want to cover, unless you guys have questions, does anybody have anything that they want to start with that they struggle with when it comes to collecting referrals? No?
Natalie, I just wanted to say, as we go through the rest of the sales coffee today, maybe you could touch on, if we don't get, say we go for child safe referrals, we don't get them. What are some other areas? Obviously, I know all the areas we can collect referrals, but just based on, say we don't build the best rapport, the trust maybe is not there. Maybe some ways to swing it back in and still collect referrals, even through VIBs or whatever.
Cool. I love it. Absolutely, Matt. Who else? Anybody have anything that they have questions on in regards to referrals?
I got one.
Okay. Is that Javon?
Yes. So I was going to say, whenever you're rolling referrals, say if you collect a lot of referrals and some of them are just names with a number attached to them for that person, how would you go about helping them identify their top people that they would need? I mean, maybe not help them identify, but how would you go about like filtering through the referrals that you collect, so that you can put people that are more likely to actually show up first? I guess that's the question.
Okay. So part of that I'm going to cover for you, Javon. Another part of that, I think that, because I've seen your schedule when I was in the office, you're probably at a point where you can start pre-qualifying some of these people, which will put your closing ratio even higher. But that's not something that we can talk about on a call when, as an agency, we're averaging less than 1 per presentation, because we can't cherry pick what we have until we have enough quantity to focus on the quality. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I will absolutely set something up to go over that with you separately, but I'll talk a little bit about the name and number referrals as well.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything that is standing out to them? We can also come back to this, but if there's anything that's on your mind right now, let's kind of get it out.
I have a question.
Let's go to Indira first, and then we'll go to the other person.
Okay, so if you sell to somebody, but they're a little iffy, but they gave you quite a few referrals and they're mostly family members, is there anything you would tread with caution about, or any tips you would give for that, just because of thinking about retention as well? Just kind of being worried if they fall off, if the other family members will kind of fall off too and cause like a domino effect.
Okay, that one I'm just going to answer real quickly, because the answer to me is no. Like, I don't let myself get psyched out about that. I don't let myself get freaked out about that. I make sure that I'm honest in the way that I'm asking for referrals. Like, I'm not going to be deceptive in any way and tell them that it's only about the free stuff or anything like that, because if I am deceptive, that can kind of ruin relationships. But no, I don't worry about, just because one person decides to enroll or whether they don't, and then it doesn't necessarily mean that their family will make the same decision. A lot of times it does, but I haven't seen that it works as much on cancellations as it does on them enrolling. Like, they'll enroll because their family did it, but I haven't seen anybody call and cancel just because their buddy canceled. You know what I mean? They don't tend to talk about that once you get it locked in, unless there's something that we're doing that upset them. So I wouldn't overthink that. Somebody to see is somebody to see, and I would reach out to them regardless.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Who was the other person that had a question?
Me. I did. Right
Yeah,
here.
sure.
Something I run into a lot. This is mainly with the discount card referrals, or even with VIBs. And people are always telling me, it's like, yeah, I think they're good. They've got insurance. I think they're covered. They're fine. Yeah, I don't think they need to talk to you or anything like that. Basically thinking that whoever they could refer is just like, yeah, they're in a fine spot. They don't need to see you, so I won't give you their name and number. I run into that a lot. What's your kind of, how do you get around that?
Okay, what's your name?
Steven?
Stephen? Really, Stephen, that's kind of stemming back to other things that could be broke in the process and the way that we're asking and in the key indicators that are leading up to that, which is what I'm going to talk about today. But if you're getting that all the time, they're either having a trust issue with you, which just means that we need to go back and start at the beginning with our rapport and make sure we're not jumping into this too quickly. Or the other piece of that is that we need to be asking correctly. And then also we need to make sure we're building the value in the benefit. So it could be any of those three things without seeing what you're doing, but let's kind of jump into some of that stuff, because a lot of these things, guys, you know, when people tell me that they struggle with referrals, there's a few different things that we can check to make sure that they're on point. Because if we have all of this right, it's really impossible to not get a result in that area, okay? So let's kind of jump into, first of all, just to give you guys your current stats, you know, we're currently as an agency there in Chicago, closing at about 30% on our leads that are issued through the company, which is normal, 1 out of 3. We're closing 2 out of 3 on our referrals, which is exactly what we tell everybody across the company. And you guys are proof that, I mean, the statistics are right. The closing ratio on our referrals is double. Okay. So if you guys needed any more incentive to get good at this, there it is. All right. But I want to get into some of the material to help you guys here. So first and foremost, what we've got to remember is when we are focused on our referrals, there's really 5 key indicators that have to be on point in order to really excel with your referrals. Okay. So the first one is, and I'm going to breeze over a few of these quickly just because they're self-explanatory, and then we'll take some extra time on some of the others. So the first one is that your energy and enthusiasm has to be on point. In other words, you've got to get excited about what you're doing. Sales in general, guys, is purely a transfer of enthusiasm. And that would be a good thing to write down in your notes, because it's like a true story. You can get it out of any sales book. Sales is a transfer of energy and enthusiasm. So what that tells me is that if I'm not fired up about what I'm doing, I can't expect other people to be fired up about it at all. Like the excitement level has to start with me. There's a few things about that. One, if I'm presenting a product and I'm not excited about it, like they're not going to get excited about it, right? But from a psychological standpoint, how much do you guys enjoy listening to people that are boring? Right? Like if people that are energetic can hold people's attention for a period of time, regardless of what they have going on, because energy and enthusiasm are contagious. That's why people that are not energetic hate being around people that are very energetic, right? And the same the other way around. Like if you're somebody that has a lot of energy, you don't want to be around people that feel like they're sucking the energy out of you, right? So it's all got to start with that and making sure that you're excited about what you're doing. And sometimes we've got to fake it on this part, guys. Like when I go into a house or into a virtual call, when it comes to meeting with a family, don't kid yourself. I don't always feel good. There's days where we don't want to get out of bed, right? Or we don't want to go to work, or the sun didn't come out and our mood isn't right, but we have to go get through it because that's what we do, right? But when you get into that house call with that family, this has got to be the brand new, most exciting thing that's going on, regardless of how you feel. And I always looked at going into a house as being on stage. You know, there were times where I would like take a deep breath in the car and I would say, okay, it's showtime, and you've got to bring it like from the get-go, guys. So get your energy and your excitement about what you're doing where it needs to be to start, because if you are not excited, they're not going to be excited either. And that affects our referrals, and it also affects our sales. Okay. The second thing, and this is probably, guys, 90% of the time, when there's a problem with people collecting referrals, it starts with this, and that's your rapport building. People have to buy you before they buy into anything that you're trying to help them with. It doesn't matter if you were sitting in front of somebody that had cancer and you had the cure for it. They would not buy it from you if they didn't buy if they didn't trust you, right? And the trust is established in the rapport building of our presentation. So guys, listen, I get it. We get into a call, whether it's virtual or whether it's in person, and it's awkward at first. It's very awkward. People are on here like, what is this? Why are we here? Oh, I don't know how to run Zoom. Oh, is my microphone working? What's going on over here? It's like a circus, right? Sometimes, yes, we have to like try to rein people in. So guys, we've got to come to the party here with a sense of making them feel comfortable about this process, right? Whether it's making them to laugh so that they lower their guard. It's making sure that we take enough time to get to know their specific situation so that we can tailor our sales presentation to make that the most amount of sense to them, right? Like I was always taught when I got into this, when I was new. Now, granted, we had to like memorize 14 pages of single spaced typed out presentation when I started. But when we did that, right, they would tell me when we were working on our presentation, they would say, Natalie, you've got to go in there and connect with these people and bring their guard down. So, because when you do that, they will buy into anything that you're doing, but they have to trust you first. So it's about coming on here and learning how to paint the picture with them in it. That's what a salesperson does. They paint a picture of a situation where there's a problem and we have the solution, right? But if we can't paint the client in that picture, we're not as effective. So we not only need to build rapport effectively so we can collect our referrals, good referrals, but we also need to build rapport effectively so we can have the highest closing ratio possible. Make sense? Thumbs up? All right, so moving on to the third area that, well, hold on, back up. So rapport, we talked about the two things that are most important. We've got to make sure that we uncover risk and make them comfortable with us. But the most important thing to our conversation here today is that we need to identify our referrals. So guys, Form is set up to help guide you through the rapport building process, right? And I don't want to beat a dead horse. I know that you guys all know what Form stands for and all this, but just guys, don't cut it short. Because if you jump into the presentation without knowing what you need to know to be effective, you're going to fall short on your sales side. And then on top of that, when they don't have that trust, you're not going to collect referrals, which is the most important part of why you're sitting down, right? So I would try to identify one person, guys, from each area of Form. Family to me is easy. And really what I always start with my rapport, because it is awkward if you jump on here and you're like, hey, how are you? How long have you lived here? What do you do, right? Like sometimes you can be intrusive and weird when you're asking questions. Like it comes across as them grilling you. So, or you grilling them. So start with something natural, like, Javon, how's your day going today? Right? And then I ask him, how long have you lived here in the Chicagoland area? Or if I'm on Zoom, I want to make sure that he's in the Chicagoland area because he could be talking to me from Puerto Rico for all I know, right? So I want to make sure that, you know, I know where they're at. And then I ask them, well, how long have you lived there? Because everybody likes to talk about where they live and it's not that intrusive, right? How long have you lived in the Chicagoland area? Oh, all my life. Wow. So do you have a lot of family in the area? Who are you closest with? Siblings, right? But guys, I'm not moving on from the family part of Form until I've already identified two people, because that one's easy. Then when I move on to occupation and I'm talking to them about where they work, do they like it? You know, do they form some good relationships at work? If you ask people what they like about work, a lot of times they'll tell you they like the people they work with. So that opens the door right up to have conversations with them about people that they work with. Recreation, you know, when you ask them what they do for fun, what do you do when you don't have to work and take care of the house and worry about all your responsibilities? What do you guys like to do? And then I always ask them if they have a team, like a group of people that they do that with, or if they just do it together as a family or whatever it may be. But guys, ask pointed questions in your rapport to uncover specific names and relationships. Because the biggest thing about when we're asking for referrals is that we have to know who we're going to assume as referrals. It can't just be, who would you like to sponsor? It doesn't work. Like, you'll get one or two, but that's not going to get you in the Spotlight magazine. We've got to help you guys to get 10, 15, 20 referrals out of the house. Somebody needs to beat my record of 250 out of the house. Javon will do it, right? All right. So moving on from rapport, guys. The third thing is we've got to make sure we're building value in the benefits. So I want you to think about, again, a lot of this is psychological, but think about just that statement. You have to build the value in the benefits, right? Why would somebody that sees no value in something want to give you somebody else's name and number to call them with something that they see no value in? Right? If we're trying to get something to someone that they don't need, or that people don't see the need for, that comes across as we're just trying to get referrals. We're just trying to sell someone something, right? That's when we start getting that kind of thing. When we take the approach of showing each family how these benefits will help them, and then let them know that for the first time now they're able to extend these benefits, it's a totally different setup. But it's about building the value in this. So, and then earlier, I think it was Matt had asked about, well, what happens if, you know, you don't get a referral off of certain benefits? Well, the thing is that that's why there's so many different benefits. We want to ask, guys, as many times as we can, and I can send you guys like exactly how I ask. Like, everybody will say to me, well, did you change it over the years? No, it works. I memorized it and I did it for 15 years. And so did my people that worked with me on my team as an MGA RGA, right? We came up with something that worked. And then from a leadership standpoint, we didn't allow people to do it any other way, because everything that like they came up with was not as good. It wasn't that we weren't open to change if it was better, but we don't need to fix things that aren't broke, right? So my point is that you ask for referrals, guys, 3, 4, 5 times. Every new benefit is a new opportunity for us to be asking for referrals. Makes sense? Just because somebody didn't see that the benefit in an AD&D benefit, or just because they didn't see the benefit in the health services discount card, doesn't mean that they won't see the benefit in the child safe kit, because everybody has their different hot buttons. Makes sense? Everybody's going to see different value in different things. But going back to what we originally talked about, if our rapport is not on point, they're going to tell you that they don't give out numbers. They're going to tell you that they don't share anybody's information. They're going to tell you that they want to call them first. They're going to tell you that they're good. A lot of that stems back to building the need and also making sure your rapport is strong enough that they trust you to pass that information along. Okay. The next point that I want to cover is when we're talking about the exclusivity behind what we do. And I want to spend a minute on this, because I think that sometimes we get caught up in the daily grind of what's going on and we forget what we're about and where we came from. And what I mean by that is that, you know, American Income has been around for a very long time. Not only is it part of Globe Life, which is one of the largest financial institutions in the country, right? But what's really cool about American Income, which I didn't get when I started, because I just was like, oh, it must be this little small company, I haven't heard of them. No, It's not because we're a little small company. We're actually the biggest force, cash driving force in the Globe Life companies. But the reason that everybody has not heard of us is because we don't work with the general public. Guys, when Bernard founded our company back in the 1950s, one of the agreements that he made with the union members is that we would not spend money as a company on advertising. Does anybody know why? Javon, why?
Because instead of putting money into advertising, we're putting everything back into the union members so that they can have the best benefits. The rates will be better for them and they can have exclusivity within their groups.
That's nailed it. So if we don't, why is it important for us to understand that, guys? Because it is actually a privilege for people to have the opportunity to enroll into our benefits. And if we don't have that correct understanding or that feeling of that, sometimes we can lose our sense of purpose when we're asking. But at the end of the day, if it wasn't for these families sponsoring people they care about to have access to this stuff, they wouldn't have access to it. We don't walk around and hand things out to people in the general public, right? There's nobody standing outside your office building with a child safe kit sign. I hope not. But my point, guys, is that the way that people have access to what we do is through someone feeling like this is so great, we want to give someone access to it. We've got to get the people to that point because that's part of our job. We've got to use that to our advantage. This is not State Farm where like the door, I'm just sitting here all day long in the office waiting for someone in to come in and buy insurance. This is, if somebody who did not get sponsored into these benefits by a family member or a friend, they would never have access to this. So we've got to make sure that we have that mental approach and that understanding in order to really do well at this. Does that make sense? This is not print on the back of your business card, referrals are always appreciated. It's so important that we have to take the time to build this up and explain this as part of the presentation. Okay. All right. Let's talk a little bit about the last part of this, and that's that we have to ask correctly. When we get into asking for referrals, guys, it can't be that we're saying, who would you like to sponsor? Or is there anyone that you would like to sponsor? That's a yes or no question. So side note, in sales in general, we don't ask yes or no questions. So we certainly don't want to do that on our referrals. When I ask questions, I want to ask questions that are a choice between yes and yes, not yes and no. Make sense? Like at the end, we don't get to the end and say, do you want to go ahead and do this, right? It's like, which option works best for you? This option or this option? So it's the same thing with referrals, guys. I'm not asking yes or no questions on referrals. The answers to my questions when I'm getting referrals are names. That's it, not yes or no. Okay. So I'm going to send out to the team the way that I asked so that you guys have the actual script that I use on how to ask for referrals. So that part of it, you don't necessarily have to write down. But what I do want to point out is that it's like a direct process every time. So step number one is I've got to explain the benefit with value, right? So that means putting into context and putting into perspective the value behind the AD&D by mentioning to them, hey, listen, I understand that this $2,000 may not cover all of your final expenses, right? But what it will do is make sure that a lot of the major bills are taken care of around the house while you're waiting on the life insurance money to come in. What it will do is make sure that the mortgage is at least paid for a month, right? It'll give you a little bit of a safety net. That's building value. To whereas some people will say, oh, this is a $2,000 benefit. It's only $2,000, but hey, it's better than nothing. We're not going to get referrals if we explain it that way, guys. So build the value first. Then you've got to explain to them that this is something that they have now allowed or given them the privilege of sponsoring any of their immediate family members or their friends, whatever part you're on or what you want to focus on, right? But then the next part of it is that I have to assume the referral. So it's always build the value when explaining the benefits, build up the exclusiveness behind the benefit, and then assume the referral. So by assuming the referral, what I'm going to do is I'm always going to have people that I stored in the back of my brain, right, during my rapport building to assume. So if I got done with the, let's just say the discount card, right? So I went through the discount card with Javon. And the way that I do that, guys, is I've got to go through it, like have a conversation. All right, Javon, I see you're wearing glasses. Are those prescription? How's your health insurance work on those? Does it pay for everything? He's going to say no, because I have glasses too. And I know that not everything is ever covered, right? And then I'm going to say, listen, man, this is going to help you to save up to however much on your glasses out of pocket. Right? So that's showing the value, then going through the hearing and the whatever else that you guys have or that you want to cover in there, but make it a conversation, right? And then I'm going to say, Javon, those discounts, as great as they are, the best thing about your discount card is that for the very first time now, they're allowing you to sponsor any of your immediate family members to get the same benefit. They don't even have to be a member of your group. So I know, Javon, that you mentioned that you have several siblings. Let's go ahead and start with your oldest. Is that a brother or a sister? See how the question is not, who do you want to start with? It's not, do you want to start with your brother or sister? Because that's a yes or no question, right? It's, I know that you mentioned that you had siblings, which I would know from my report. If you don't know that, then temporarily beat yourself so you don't forget it next time, and then just don't do it again. Because you're shooting yourself in the foot, guys, if you don't have these names by the time you get to the part where you're collecting. And then I'm just going to say who's next, okay? But one of you, I think it was Javon, asked about name and number referrals. So here's the thing that I'm going to tell you about that, guys, is that you really want to be careful. And I know why Javon asked this, because I looked before I got on here at who had the most referrals on the team, and he's one of them, averaging the highest out of any presentation. So here's the thing that we have to do, guys, is we've got to take time on this and not let them rush us through it so that we have enough information to be more effective when we're setting these appointments. You with me? Meaning I'm not just going to say, okay, so Javon, who's your oldest sibling? Okay, that's your sister. Awesome. What's your sister's name? What's her phone number? Okay, who's next? Like, I want to have a little bit of a conversation about her, and I want to be typing this stuff into my computer as I'm going so that when I call to set the referral, I have more ammunition, right? So what do I put in the notes? I want to have I want to carry on a little bit of a conversation and find out, where does your sister work? And the way that I get into that is I usually ask if she's a union member as well. And then Javon says, no, she works at this place, right? So I'm typing all that in there, you know, okay, great. How many kids does she have? I'm going to put that in there. So that way, when I call Javon's sister, I can refer to what I have. Anything that makes it personal gives you credibility. So if I can call Javon's sister and say, hey, I know you don't know me, but I was out to see your brother, and listen, he got some really great benefits through his union. For the first time now, he was able to extend them to his immediate family members, even the ones that are not a member of his group, which is unheard of. And listen, you were at the top of his list because he mentioned, you know, with your two little ones and you guys kind of being on a set income, that he really wanted to make sure you got this discount card to help you save money above your insurance. That's a lot more powerful approach than if I just have a name and number. Does that make sense? So I want to have a conversation when I'm getting these referrals so that I have a little bit of information. And I know that guys, that takes more time, but it's okay. For every 5 referrals that we collect, if we do it the right way, we're going to get 1 sale. Because when we're calling, we're typically not able to get a hold of probably 3 out of the 5. We'll probably sit down with 2 out of the 5, and 1 will enroll and 1 won't. It's all a numbers game, right? But we want to make sure that we have enough information to make it worth our time, because if we start going too fast, sometimes it starts to feel like we're telemarketing people. But if we have enough information to connect with them, it will make setting those a little bit easier. Makes sense? Okay, so asking correctly, we kind of covered that. And then at the end, you know, if we ask, what I always tell people is ask after 2 of your no cost benefits minimum, and then always ask at the end. And I'll send you how I ask, because it doesn't sound like I'm asking the same thing every time. Okay. But when I ask at the end, I'm pretty much looking to specifically roll a referral. Like, we do not get paid extra, guys, to make phone calls to get an appointment. Why not just have the people that we're sitting down with help us set the appointment, get it done in 2 minutes instead of 2 hours, and move on to the next, right? We don't make money, well, we do, because we technically it's like $4 every time we dial the phone to set an appointment, but we have to like go pick up the check in order to see that money come in, right? So if we're going to operate under those type of pretenses, why would we not want to come into the call session with 80% of our schedule already booked, where all we have to do is just confirm what we have on the schedule, make sure they're going to be there, and fill in any gaps? You with me? That's how we get to go home. Although I've been in you guys' call night and they are pretty fun, but you know, call night was not really the night that I wanted to hang out at the office until 10:30. I know you guys all love each other and just want to hang out in the office, but no, I wanted to get home, right? Well, if we come into the office, guys, with 80% of our schedule set, then we're not going to be there until 9, 10 o'clock. Another beautiful thing about what we do is if we get the job done early, we get to leave early, right? So come in with the job already done. So how do we do that? Well, once we collect 10 referrals out of every house, it's pretty simple when I get to the end. I'm going to say, Javon, listen, of everyone that you mentioned, who do you think could use the benefit package portion of the plan the most? And then he's going to name someone. I've never had him say, well, probably no one could use that. That's never happened. Okay. So he probably will say my brother, my sister. It's usually somebody close to their age, which is good. Or like if you're meeting with people that are a little older, a lot of times they'll recommend their kids, right? But whenever I ask who that person is, the next thing that I tell them is why before I ask them to do something. And then I'm going to tell them that I need them to call. Well, I'll tell them that I need them to call first, but I tell them in the same sentence why, right? So I'm going to say to Javon, so Javon, listen, here's the thing. Since you think that your sister can use these benefits the most, I want to make sure that I don't miss her. I'm going to actually have you give her a call right now before we get off of the call here. And I'll tell you why. I have, you know, with the union members that we have, I have 8 to 10 members on my schedule every single day. So I'm going to do my very best to get the no cost benefits out to every one of these people that you mentioned. But I don't want to miss your sister since you feel she can really benefit from these. So if you don't mind, if you want to just get her on the phone real quick, I'll even explain to her what's going on. You don't have to do that, but just reach out to her if you don't mind. And I'm just going to wait because he will. Now, are they going to, somebody on here is going to say, I have a question. How do you do that when the person that they recommend is at work? Listen, guys, it doesn't work every single time. But in order to get a high level of a result, we've got to ask every single time. We can't just do it when we feel like the conditions are right. Right? If we have 10 presentations in a week and we have 6 people call and get somebody on the line to replace an appointment, that's 6 more appointments that we didn't have coming into call night before. That's 2 sales, guys. 2 referral sales. That's about $2,000 in ALP. So take the extra 5 minutes to have them help you set the appointment. Now, here's key. If I tell, like, we're going to pretend for a minute, Javon does not work at AIL and doesn't know anything about what we do, other than what I told him when I sat down with him and presented to him, right? Under those circumstances, if I tell Javon to call his sister and then I let him do it, he's going to get his sister on the phone and say, hey, the insurance lady is here and she wants me to let you come over here, or she wants to come see you or whatever, but it isn't going to be sexy, right? And then they're going to say, no, I'm good. So I don't want to let Javon set the appointment. In the real world where we're at, yes, he can set all my appointments. He's got it going on. But in the scenario we're talking about where I'm presenting to him in the house, I don't want him calling his sister and saying, hey, and the insurance lady's here, she wants to come see you. So I'm going to let him get his sister on the phone, and then I'm going to set the appointment. And all I do is follow my phone script. So if his sister is Indira, just because you guys are right next to each other on my screen, right? And he calls Indira, he's going to say, hey, sister. And I'm going to say, hey, Indira, I know you don't know me, but I'm Natalie. I'm sitting over here with Javon. And listen, I handled his benefits through his Teamsters Local 329. Listen, for the first time now, he was actually able to sponsor you to receive some of the benefits that he receives through the union without even having to be part of the union. Isn't that amazing? So listen, there's several benefits that you're going to get at no cost. There's also a package of permanent benefits, but I don't want to get too far ahead of myself because those you have to qualify for. The reason I'm reaching out is I just want to explain to you how those work. So listen, this was really important to Javon that we could get these benefits to you. And I only have a couple more spots in my schedule. What time do you and your spouse typically get home from work during the week? And then I'm setting the appointment. Okay, I have this time or this time. And guys, if I can do it, I'll set it for today. I don't care if I have another appointment. That ratio is double on the show ratio and double on the closing ratio than any other appointment I have on my schedule. So if she tells me, hey, you know, listen, we'll be home tonight, I'm going to book her for tonight. You with me? And then guys, really solidify your referral appointments, okay? And this is kind of a separate thought, but we can tie it into this. So for example, after I get Indira committed to a time, right? I'm gonna solidify, and people will tell me, well, Natalie, I feel like my referrals sometimes, like my show ratio suffers because I don't know, why does it? Well, it can suffer if you're not giving them enough information on the phone. Like if you're just calling them and saying, hey, Indira, Javon wants me to bring you by this discount card. That's more weird than it is valuable. So she's more likely to start asking a ton more questions and then hide from me when I go to show up, right? So I want to be transparent. Like, look, I'm going to go over these few things with you. Make sure your phone script is giving them enough information to want to be there. But then the last part is we've really got to solidify these referral appointments. Because they don't know really who we are or what we're doing, it's really important that we're putting the importance in there on them being there, right? So the way I would do that is I would say to Indira, so Indira, just so you know what we do, I mean, we handle the benefits for union members just like Javon all day. I sit down with anywhere from 8 to 10 families a day. So listen, it was really important to Javon that you and your husband were able to get these benefits. But I just need to make sure, you know, my 6 o'clock time slot is actually my most high demand time slot on my schedule. So I just need to make sure that there's nothing that could prevent both you and your husband from connecting virtually here tonight at 6 p.m. Makes sense? If they say to me, oh, there shouldn't be. No, Indira, there shouldn't be or there won't be. I just can't put you in that time slot where it can take away from somebody else missing out on their benefits. Make sense? Like, don't take that. I should be. So the last thing that I'll kind of close with here, guys, and then I'll open it up. And if we have any more questions, we can cover those real quick before we jump off. But somebody had mentioned, and I'm sorry, I forget your name, the gentleman in the back of the room in the office over there. But you had mentioned, you know, well, what do you do when people start saying, you know, they're fine, they already have what they need, they're taken care of, right? So I just want to encourage all of you that when you're getting responses like that, and I'm going to tell you what to say when they say that, but I also want you to understand that if you're getting that all the time, you've got to look at these other areas. This is not normal to get to ask for referrals where they tell you every time that one of the above, right? No, I don't trust, give people's information out. They're telling you they don't trust you. They don't see the value, like all of that stuff. When you're getting objections like that constantly, there's something broke with steps 1 through 5. It's not normal for people to get to the end where we ask for referrals and they're like, no, that's not normal. Okay. It's not normal for them to say, oh, they're good. Right. I'll tell you why. So I told you tomorrow is my 16-year anniversary, right? I probably have about, I don't know, 1,000 friends and acquaintances that I have met at American Income Life in my 16 years, right? That's probably putting it conservatively, really. And what do we all do with this company? We talk, Indira. That wasn't really what I was going for. I wasn't thinking that gossip was the answer, but no, my point, guys, is we all work with benefits and insurance, right? I can't tell you what any one of my friends has for life insurance, and I work in the life insurance industry. So why I don't believe for a second that Joe is going to tell me that his friend Matt, Javon, Indira, and you know, Susie Q over here are good, because I'm pretty sure they did not get together on Saturday night and have a 3-hour party discussing their permanent life benefits and what they were going to end up taking with them into retirement. I'm pretty sure they were not talking about what their health insurance covers or doesn't cover and where their gaps in coverage are, right? So, and I see you guys laughing, but we've got to make sure that when listen to what they're telling you guys, that doesn't make any sense. Something is broke if you're getting that. But when I do get that, guys, like if I ask Javon, and Javon, I'm sorry I keep picking on you. You're just right in front of me here. I wish that there was like a revolving thing with Zoom so I could see different faces. And Matt keeps coming and going. He's the only one that changes. But if I ask Javon if, you know, for referrals, and he said to me, oh, they're good, I would laugh a little bit, like I just did, because it's the silliest thing I've ever heard. And I would say, okay, so here's the deal, Javon. Maybe when we talked about this earlier, it wasn't something that you like picked up on, but they can't have access to these benefits without you sponsoring them into the benefits, right? And I don't know, man, like I don't remember the last time I've had like a party at my house to talk about what people have and where they need help. So what I would suggest is you give them the opportunity to say they're good. Just because without you sponsoring them, they wouldn't have access to this. And I don't do it with an attitude, you know what I mean? But I'm going to gently remind them that one, you know, they wouldn't have access to this without them sponsoring them. And also, when was the last party where we all got together and talked about our benefits, and why didn't you invite me? You can even make it a joke. And then I'm going to end it with, you know, that's something that what I would recommend is just giving them the opportunity to say no. Because without you sponsoring them, they wouldn't have access to it. So Matt, who are we going to start with? And I've got to, guys, anytime I get an objection, I've just like in the house at the end, like if we get to the end and we say, which way do you want to go? And they say, well, I want to think about it, right? It's the same with referrals. We've got to address the objection, and then we've got to assume again. So if they say that, then I just go right back to starting with somebody else. So Matt, is it going to be your brother you want to start with first? What's his first name? It's just like when we're closing, and I'm not trying to get off on a tangent because I know sometimes that happens, but I'm looking around the room here and I see a lot of new faces. It's just like when we get to the end, guys. We can't say, okay, Indira and Javon, which way do you guys want to go? Do you want to start with option A, which is what most of the families do, or do you want to go ahead and start with the starter program option B? Now, this may be a little different than what you say, guys. I'm not saying it's exact, right? But I'm going to give them an option. And then if they tell me they want to think about it, I've got to discuss my point that I want to discuss. And then I've got to come right around to asking them which way they want to go again. You will never close. You can say the most genius stuff on the planet in response to their objections, but if you don't come around and ask the closing question again, you're not going to get there. Right? So if Javon tells me that he wants to think about it, I would say, okay, so I understand how you feel, Javon. Let me ask you this. Is it that the cost is too high, or is it that the coverage is too low that you want to ponder? A lot of times that'll draw out what the real issue is, right? And then he'll say, oh, well, I actually have benefits through my job already, which was always the worst one for me because I've already told them 3 times that they have benefits through their job. So I don't think they're listening, right? But then I would just point out, well, Javon, listen, I understand all of our members have some of the best benefits through their job. Remember, when we either retire or leave our job, or even if we get fired, God forbid, all those benefits are gone. So these are the permanent benefits that they put in place and made available for you guys so that you can take this with you into retirement. Does that make sense? Okay, so Javon, which option is going to be best for you guys to start out with, option A or option B? Do you see how that works? Like, that's just an example. I make my point, but then when I'm coming back, I've got to ask for the check again. I can't just sit there. It's the same with referrals. If Matt tells me, well, listen, I think they're good. And I say, oh, okay, Matt, I understand. Listen, because they wouldn't have access to this without you sponsoring them, one thing I would suggest is give them the opportunity to say no, because I don't know, when was the last time you had a party about how your benefits work? This is something that goes with anyone's benefits. So you had mentioned your brother. What's his first name? See how I've got to just come back around and move through the conversation? So guys, as far as my notes, that's really what I have for you today. Anybody have any other questions before we wrap up at all?
I had a few questions, Natalie. I don't know how much time you've got, but just real quick, just in general, kind of, coming together with everything you went over. Obviously the big, like you kind of went over at the beginning, is the mindset on the refs. Like, what are some things that you suggest or things that you keep in your head as you're going through a sit? If you think they're uninsurable, obviously you're just going to go straight for refs, but what's your main mindset on every sit with referrals and how you're going to approach them?
I'm not really sure how to elaborate on that more than what I kind of already talked about, as far as like, I don't look at these appointments like, Matt mentioned when somebody's uninsurable. Like, if you don't have the mindset that you're going there to sell these people, that's not going to matter to you. If that makes sense. You know what I mean? To me, this is just about finding an angle of where I can help somebody. It's kind of like a game of pool. Like, I kind of look at it as there's always a way to make a shot, but it's just about finding the right angle that makes the most amount of sense to the people, right? So, not that I want to get off on that tangent. I want to
Natalie,
that.
sorry to interrupt,
What's that?
but Tommy's about to finish up with what he has to do, because we have an appointment with him, and he's about to shut down the Zoom.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry I had to interrupt, but